Hello YouTube, a little story time for you guys today. The environment is a little bit strange, and that's because I've been trying to record this video now 10 times and I just can't get it right. And I realized why. It's because I was too comfortable. The things I'm going to be talking about today are just dark, deep, and to be honest with you, every time I was trying to record in the garage, I realized that it sounded fake because it was in a controlled environment and I was my confident self, so it just didn't work. And therefore I decided to just take the phone with me into the forest and just let it fucking rip. I just want to be open with you guys today and not think about what I'm going to say, because in the past on the channel I spoke about lifting and I spoke about my love for lifting, and all of that was true. But I never tried to relate it to me. I always try to remain general because I don't want to be too open-hearted. And I think that's a mistake, because there's a lot I can actually teach you guys if I just let it just all out. So today in this story time, I want to tell you how lifting changed my life. But to be able to do that, we're going to have to go back in time, because I wasn't always that guy. There used to be a time where the NH that you see nowadays didn't exist. And actually, the NH that you see nowadays was nothing but a dream. I would have never believed I could become this. And therefore, again, we need to go back to these uncomfortable, those sorrowful days. So you see, lifting, I believe, has the potential to change people on a spiritual level. And it's exactly what happened to me, because when I was younger, I was extremely disgusted with myself. And that's because I was very weak. I think it's something that you guys can relate to some level. We all start at some point and we all try to change what we have because we hate it on some degree or another. For me, that weakness was something I was waking up with every single day. And I was reminded of that weakness because I was always the smallest in my classrooms and I couldn't really defend myself at all. And the issue is that in a perfect world, that would have meant nothing, but this world is not perfect. And so people would pick on me all the time. I spoke about it in the past. I used to get bullied all the time. And the problem is that the way people view you and the way people interact with you has a direct impact on the way you view yourself. And it's vice versa as well. You see, the vision that you have of yourself and your own confidence is going to have an influence on the way people treat you. But at the time, the only reality that I experienced was that people treated me like shit, and therefore I felt like shit. And that cycle was never ending. When I was younger, again, I was bullied all the time on a physical level. And the problem is that it started to make a big difference on the way I viewed myself, because when you get beat up, when you get treated like shit, it's impossible to go back home and look at yourself in the mirror and love what you see. So I went from someone who was a happy little boy to someone who was very depressed and disgusted with himself, because I let people treat me poorly. And it's a cycle I was stuck in for a very long time. I remember, again, daily beat-ups. I remember in PE not even being able to do one leg raise. I was so weak I couldn't do one push-up. And the thing is that the only way I found to actually get out of that cycle is to become very violent. To fight off the bullying, I would be more violent than the bullies. And actually it served me for a very long time. It actually worked. I actually got myself out of that situation where I was being beat up on a daily basis. But the problem is that it didn't fix my issue, because deep down I was still insecure. I was still the same boy, and that confidence that I expected would come from that never actually came. The only thing it did actually is that I became an asshole, because violence had become my one solution. I would lash out at people, and I remember hurting people that I loved dearly because I treated everyone the same way. Because everyone treated me like shit, I treated everyone like shit. And I quickly realized that this wasn't going to work. It was a childish reaction on my part. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to be intimidating, because I wanted to be left alone. But my only option to be intimidating, because I was so small, was to be violent, constantly, like a small dog that bites people because he's afraid. And I realized that I couldn't just keep on going like this, because it simply wasn't sustainable. So I needed to find something else. I needed to find another way to keep people at bay. And the thing too with violence and just attacking people is that it doesn't align with who I am. Maybe you're like this. There's a lot of people who are born with an instinct of self-preservation. Well, they'll do whatever to defend themselves. But I was never like this. I was willing to let people just step all over me if it meant just not creating any waves or not attracting attention. And I even started to convince myself it was moral, like I was a good person because I wasn't violent. But that's bullshit. You know why? It's because people like us, if you're like me, who have that kindness in themselves, if you let people hurt you for too long, what's going to happen is that you're going to start to hate people. You're going to start to develop like sociopathic traits, and that kindness that you used to have is going to rot away. The problem is that my defense mechanism to protect myself from that is that I was just going to become an asshole again, to become violent. But that's also not a solution. And that's actually something you see a lot in kind people. They create a facade. They create something that is going to protect them from the outside world. It's very common in Stoics, actually. The people who espouse that type of philosophies are the ones with the softest hearts. That's why they need the toughest walls. I was exactly like that because I realized that if I let people just trample all over my heart, eventually there's going to be no heart left. And on top of that, I realized one thing, and maybe it's something you realized as well. Weakness was not only making me a target for bullies, it was also making me a worse person because I was being treated so terribly by humans that I was starting to detest them like on a global level. There was no love left in my heart. So I wanted strength. I wanted strength because I wanted the ability to not be a terrible person. But when you're targeted all the time, it becomes something that is tough to even fathom. I mean, I have some examples for you guys I can give you so that you understand my situation back then. I was so weak and pathetic that I had victim written on my forehead. And that meant that people constantly picked on me. And even people outside of my schools, like, it's not just kids that bullied me, it's even adults. I remember going to stores and being treated terribly by the clerks. I remember going to get a passport renewed and the woman there talking to me like I was a piece of shit. Why? Because I was. It's also the reality of this world. People can only treat you poorly if you let them. But the issue is that I had no choice back then. What was I going to do? People could immediately sense that I had no defense mechanisms, that I was weak. So they took their days out on me because keep in mind that people are going to always find a way to feel better about their situation. So if another weakling sees you, they're going to use you as a way to feel better if you're weaker than them. And the worst part is that this also applied to me. I realized back then that all of the frustration I was accumulating, I was taking out on people. But what people? I couldn't do it to other people who were stronger than me, so I took it out on people that I loved. Because the people I love are not going to fight back. And this is disgusting. This is not what you want to be. And I was seeing that I was actually becoming like this. I was becoming the type of man that was taking his days out on the people that cared for me the most. So I needed a change. And the change I realized was going to come through my ability to actually build something worth respecting for myself and for others, which also means something to fear. Again, a sad reality of this world, many people are only going to respect you or treat you kindly if they can sense that if they don't, there's going to be consequences. If there is no consequence, keep in mind that it's now up to them, meaning that you have to bet on the fact they're going to be kind. And most people are not like that. And even if they were kind, keep in mind one thing. People can treat you three ways in this world. They can be indifferent to your existence, which is just neutral. They can treat you horribly, so they can bully you and take advantage of you, or they can treat you with pity, so they can look down upon you as like a poor puppy lost in the rain. And I don't know about you guys, but I hated that more than the bullying. I never wanted people to take pity on me, but the issue is that I was pitiful. So what was the solution? Well, the solution was to become dangerous, to become something to be respected. And therefore, I had to start now because my faith in humans was slowly being destroyed. I was seeing that, yeah, I wasn't treated properly because of my small stature, my weakness, and the naivety in me, the innocent man in me was thinking, oh, that's unjust. But it's not unjust, it's just the way things go. So if I wanted to be able to have a good life and to finally love humans again, I had to find a way to first and foremost love myself. And to love myself, I had to first destroy what I used to be. I couldn't keep protecting my weak self. It's something that I used to do a ton, and actually, it's something that people who get bullied tend to do. You cling to your past identity because that's all you have, but that's the identity that made it so that people treat you like shit. You need to do away with it. And I understand it's tough. Many people who, again, in this world are mistreated because they have a weak identity. And they have a weak identity because they're mistreated also. It's tough to build up something worthwhile when people are pelting you with rocks. But it's something that needs to be done. And how is it done? Well, you can't do it surrounded with people. You understand that by now, because they are either going to baby you, so they're going to make you comfortable in staying weak, or they're going to beat you down and you're going to spend your days on the ground. So the solution is isolation. Spending time alone, which is, of course, really uncomfortable. You don't want that. We have a tendency when we feel bad to surround ourselves with people because they comfort us, but that's a trap. It's going to keep you weak. So that's what I did. I spent time by myself because I wanted to build something, a thing that I understood back then had all of the worth in the wood, and that was independence. But it wasn't independence from the group. It was independence from the cruelty of man. I wanted to be free from the domination of others. And therefore, I needed to have the strength to be my own person. Again, to have my own identity that wasn't depending on others, that would allow me to not feel so terrible when people attacked me or tried to put me down. Again, back then, all of these people would mistreat me, that people that I didn't even know, and it would put me in like a depressed state because I would think, wow, if I'm treated like shit, it most likely is because I am shit. And I was correct. So I had to completely revamp the way I viewed myself. And that solution, that realization I had, I found in lifting. Lifting is what put me out of that hole. It's what allowed me to actually build something worthwhile, which, by the way, only happened again while I was alone. I spent thousands of hours by myself training. And something happened when I did that. You see, when you are finally alone, you have the ability to contemplate your weakness and what you did wrong. For too long, I spent my lone time and I spent my loneliness in reality on just feeling bad about myself, thinking back to all of the bad things that happened to me. But that's not constructive. What was constructive instead is to take that time and to decide, okay, during that time I'm going to suffer. Being able to elect when you're going to suffer is a superpower. This world is going to make you suffer regardless, okay? Suffering is part of this existence. But if you have the ability and the fortitude to decide to yourself that you are going to right now suffer on purpose to build something great, this is going to allow you afterwards to face the other types of pain and just shrug them off. And it's exactly what happened to me. I willingly suffered and I contemplated every single day. And that built confidence, because it built in me the ability to, one, understand that I could take pain, and two, the ability also to understand that I was the one to decide when to receive pain. So now, if someone else was trying to inflict pain upon me, I had the ability also to reject it, because at the end of the day, it's true that most of the mistreatment I received wasn't punches or kicks. It was people treating me poorly, and that was enough to ruin my day. And I was slowly trying to break away from that. By electing to struggle, I made myself much more resilient to adversity, because if you climb a mountain every single day and someone one day tries to force you to climb one, guess what's going to happen? Either you're going to have the strength of character to say no, or you're going to climb it and it's going to be no big deal. And as I did that, my body transformed. But it's something I realized afterwards. What I was after was never actually muscles. It wasn't just the transformation of the body, it was the transformation of the spirit. The transformation of the body was a byproduct. It's by changing the body that the spirit changed. But what made my standing in this world completely modified is that the way people viewed me also was modified by that. Yes, it's my body, but it's also the way I interact with people. And I'm sure that you guys have always also had the same realization. It's the spirit that transforms, and that is what is the most important. My problem back then wasn't that I was small. My issue is that my character was, and people could sense it. I firmly believe that humans have like a sixth sense. They can sense weakness, they can sense strength, and that only makes sense. It's because we have to be able to understand the social standings of others. We have to have the ability to understand where this guy or that girl stands, because if they are superior, we have to actually treat them properly to get advantages, and if they're weaker, we can just bully them. We can take advantage of them. That's how it works. Most of the time, people who get treated poorly, it's not because they're small. It's because what's up there is small. Of course, the two usually go hand in hand. I've always found that the body pairs nicely with the soul. Back then, I had a small and weak spirit, and I had a small and weak body. And nowadays, I'm the exact opposite. But it's true that most of the time you're going to be judged directly on your looks. And my looks back then were not helping me at all because people saw that I was weak and they took their days on me, and I lacked the strength to put them in their place. But lifting gave me a body that made people think twice before trying their hand at me. And most importantly, it prepared me to actually fight back in case they did. And that's sort of the paradox of strength. It's something that Machiavelli himself said. Strength in itself is not important. It's looking strong that is. It's the reason why even learning how to fight is important for confidence. But if what you want is a peaceful life, you don't even need that. You just need a body that looks like you can fight. For me, I cannot fight for shit. At least against someone who's trained, I'm going to be crushed. But I have a strong and big body now, and that's enough. People are not going to try their hands at me, and I finally get what I want, which is a peaceful life. It's what I've always wanted. It's what many people want, actually. It's just the ability to live my life by myself, have my independence, and not be bothered by people who try to take advantage of me. It was a dream back then, and I didn't realize that it was eventually going to become a reality, but it did. And what it did, it was only after years and years of training, yes, but it was also at the point in my life where I was starting to finally love myself. It's funny how things coincide like this. It was only at the point where I respected myself that other people started to respect me as well. And there was no need to punch. An indomitable spirit seldom fights, as I already said. I fought the most in my life when I was the weakest, and it's because I couldn't pick my battles. Other people picked my battles for me. They decided to go after me. Nowadays, it's the opposite. I myself will not be targeted by people because they're not stupid. They're not going to go for the big guy. And because I'm peaceful and I don't want to hurt others, as we say in French, je ne ferai pas de mal à une mouche. Well, I'm in a situation where it's the best of both worlds. I'm not going to start shit with people. They won't start shit with me. I have the life I've always wanted, a peaceful life. In truth, as I said, if you're kind-hearted and you're the type that doesn't want to hurt others, the best thing you can do is to develop the strength to do so. You don't have to use it, but it's going to prevent you from losing your kindness because a strong wall is going to protect your heart. And now you can be kind to people as much as you want. Kindness is a trait that only the strong can actually employ to its full extent. And it has led me to what I am today. Because that's how lifting changed my life in reality. Nowadays, people treat me with respect without me having to do anything. Back then, I had to struggle again and again. I had to prove my worth, or I had to defend it even. Nowadays, I just have to exist. I just have to be there. And my presence and my confidence and body is enough. It gives the message. And what message is that? Simple. You can't fuck with me. On no level can you fuck with me. I always have the ability to defend myself, and if you do something I don't like, I'm going to make you pay for that. I've never had to actually demonstrate that. I've never even had to say that to people. They just naturally understand. That's the power of lifting. That's the power of a muscular, powerful body. It's a language that's universal. People are always going to understand it perfectly. And it's great because it also has led me into situations where now not only am I not treated poorly by people, but I'm treated nicely. It's the halo effect. Once you become muscular, you become more attractive and more respectable in the eyes of people. And they start treating you with the respect that you wished you always received, but that you had to actually work to get. And in a sense, I like it better that way. I think if people had given me respect out of obligation, out of moral obligation, I would have hated it. But because I worked for it, now it makes sense. Now when I have proper interactions with people, I realize, hey, you actually earned this shit. It wasn't given to you. You remember the way you used to be treated. All of these moments in my life that depressed me because people treated me like dirt, I remember. But it's nice now because it shows the contrast with what I have today. And it's why I cherish lifting to this day. It's because it gave me the most beautiful of gifts. It gave me access to humans. See, as I said, humans will only respect you if there is a threat, if you are dangerous. That's the nature of the beast. But the problem is that if you're not dangerous, you're going to start hating everyone because they're going to take advantage of you. It's only natural. So the only way to see the best in people, paradoxically, is to scare them enough that you're not going to actually have to see their ugly faces. They're always going to show their best faces. And maybe that's hypocritical, maybe that's a little bit, again, a life spent surrounded by people who wear masks, but everyone wears a mask. So might as well see people around you, the one that smiles, and not some that are snarling or grimacing at you. It's a much better existence, I can tell you that, because it's much more positive now. Most of what I receive nowadays are looks of admiration or shock, because again, people have never really seen this. which is funny because to me now it's my everyday, right? But I think that once you get to a certain point of muscularity, you will start to become sort of like a novelty item for people, and that's c'est génial, as we say in French. It's great to see that because sometimes it even feels a little bit unheard, unearned. Sorry. Sometimes it feels like I'm receiving a kind treatment for something I didn't really deserve, but I did deserve it. I built that body, so I deserve it. And I hope you can get to that point as well, where what you see in the eyes of people when they first see you or meet you is not indifference or pity or hatred or domination or predation, it's admiration or maybe even envy. And these are all positive things. It's so much better. And on top of that, if you're the type that's a little bit more aggro or who believes that people need to be judged, etc., understand that if you have a big and muscular body, you won't even have to tell people things. You existing is going to be a reminder that they can do better. So if you're a bully at heart for some reason, now you don't even have to be an active bully anymore. You can be a passive bully because your body is the best judgment there is. It reminds people of what they could have if they actually worked hard. And it's the reason why I love it so much. Just today, I met a guy I hadn't seen in 6 months. I was shirtless. He was going into his apartment with like 2 bottles of alcohol. And the first thing he said is like, oh, I need to work out again. I didn't say anything to the guy, but just seeing me reminded him of his potential. And that's great. As someone like me who wants everyone to do well, it's what I want. I don't want people to feel bad, or if they do feel bad, I want it to be positive. I want it to be a fuel to make themselves better, because that's how it worked for me. It's feeling bad that made me get better. So in reality, I don't resent these years, because to be able to change, I had to start somewhere. And that change and what I used to be makes what I have today so much better. So I truly hope that you're going to get that as well. That perfect dichotomy of nature where once you have that body and you've been lifting for a while, the negative interactions stay away because the people who would actually engage in them are going to be too afraid. And the positive ones are going to be plenty because you're going to be attractive. You're going to have that halo around you. Now, funnily enough, once I did get that, I also realized that it wasn't what I truly wanted, meaning that what I was really concerned with wasn't the view of others or the judgment of others. What I cared about is what I thought about myself. Because in truth, the attack of others hurt me because they echoed what I thought of myself. It's why they hurt. If you're confident and people try to attack you, mentally or on a spiritual level, it does nothing to you because you have that confidence and that strength like a rock. But I didn't have that. I was flimsy. So when someone attacked me and called me weak, I knew I was weak. They were just repeating something I already knew, and that is the reason why it hurt so much. But nowadays, it doesn't happen anymore because that weakness that I had in me completely disappeared. It was replaced by strength, and therefore I'm indestructible now, meaning that I cannot be physically hurt because no one is going to try their hand, and I cannot be mentally challenged. It's the perfect combo in reality, and all of that, again, I owe to lifting. And it's the reason why I always find it a little bit cliche and a little bit, in a sense, also dishonest when I hear that all that lifters want is to dominate others, as if we only cultivate our strength to be able to become bullies. For the vast majority of the time, that's not what I see. I don't see people that try to get bigger to attack other people. For the most part, I find that lifters want to be left alone and they want to live life on their own terms. And the best way to do that is to build independence. And independence is usually best built and cultivated through a developed body and the developed spirit that also comes with it. So in truth, most lifters are the kindest, nicest people you will ever meet in your life. The only thing that they do is that they realize that to play the game on their terms, they had to develop strength. It doesn't mean they're going to use strength to dominate other people. Because in reality, we live not to dominate others, but to dominate ourselves and our destiny. The best way to become the master of your destiny is to be strong enough to face any difficulties. And for the most part, it also makes us kinder people. I know that for me, I was the meanest when I was the weakest. Why? Well, because I was not in control. So whenever I had a chance to take my day out on people, I would, because I didn't have much of chances and I was full of frustration. But nowadays, none of that is present because no one is discharging their frustration on me. So I'm not full of that sentiment and I don't have to actually take it out on others. Which also leads me to a very important point. Niceness, true niceness, is a trait of the strong. Only the strong can truly be kind. If you're weak and you're nice, you're not really nice. It's just that you don't have a choice. You are forced to be kind, because if you're not kind, you're going to get crushed. So in a sense, you're an hostage to morality. And that's not good. That's not true virtue. I know that, again, when I was weak, I didn't have a choice. My virtue was just in a sense, camouflage, cowardice. I was a coward. Oh, it is a frog. Maybe it's going to come my way. Who knows? But yeah, I was just a big old coward. It's very easy to be kind when you have a gun to your head. I think that true kindness comes from the fact that you have a choice. You decide to be kind, and for the most part, the strongest people are the kindest people. It's because they have plenty of strength to give, they have nothing to prove, they feel great about themselves, so why would they try to put others down? If you look back at my story, all of the people that abused me in my life abused me because I let them, but also because it felt good. For them, it felt good to take their days out on others. And yes, it's pathetic, but most people are like this. Most people will find a way and utilize you. They are going to use you as a tool to feel better about themselves. So just don't let them. Become a person that is not going to be subjected to that type of behavior. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to become mean. I know that for me, I'm still the same person that I am now that back when I was 12, meaning that inside, I'm still the same guy. I'm still kind, I don't want to hurt people, I want to be left alone. But I couldn't just stay like this because it wasn't working. So something had to change. And what changed is, for the most part, my body. The spirit in the body didn't change, but I realized one thing. Building a body that I have now allowed me to stay the way I used to be. So to be truly myself, I had to change a part of who I was to match it. And I think it's true for most people. Most people are not born in a body that matches them. That's why we dress a certain way or we're going to have a certain style. Lifting is exactly that. It's trying to finally sculpt the body into something that is more connected to your spirit. And once you have that, I think you're done. I think you have accomplished one of the most important things a human being can accomplish in his life. For me, nowadays, I live in a body that feels not only like a home, but also a castle. I feel comfortable and I feel protected. And once you have these two things together, you have confidence. That is what confidence is. It's to feel at home, to feel like you belong, and also to understand that where you belong cannot be attacked. It is bulletproof. These two things also I owe to lifting. It's developing the body that gave me these things. And that connects back to my olden days. When I was young, I had only one dream, and that dream was to be big. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't understand why I wanted that in the first place. Right? I wanted to be big because it's what made the most sense. What really appealed to me in being big, I only get now. I only understand now because now I see. What I wanted in reality was a body that I could love and a body that could protect myself. And I have it now. And it's why lifting changed my life. It's how lifting changed my life. It's only something you realize afterwards. I said it in the video, Why Do We Lift? Where I told you, one day you'll wake up and you'll love yourself. And I can't tell you when, maybe 6 months, maybe 6 years, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you when it happened for me. But one day I woke up and I loved myself. And I was like, wow, so this was it. I wasn't really lifting to have a big body. I was lifting for this feeling of belonging. And once I had it, everything else clicked, everything else made sense. I had finally accomplished my dream. I live my dream. I live my dream every day when I wake up. When I wake up and I see my body, I'm like, I'm good. I can go back to bed. Why? I made it. This is what it means to make it. It's everything I've always wanted. And when I see what it took, I can only be appreciative of all of the hardship I went through because it's what pushed me towards lifting. Without it, I would have never discovered lifting, and I can tell you for a fact I would be a shitty-ass person. If I had never been through that discomfort, I would be one of these people that would have made their weakness into a strength, convinced myself that I was virtuous when in reality I was weak, and I would be a terrible individual. I would again be a terrible influence also on the world, but that's not what I have now. What I have now is love for my body, which is the best thing you can hope for. And this is why I want everyone to lift. This is why I took that phone on a hike into the middle of the fucking forest. There's frogs, I cannot feel my feet because I'm sitting on a rock. My ass is in fucking shambles, I have ants in my foot. But I'm also very happy to be there with you guys. I think it was all worth it. And the more I think about it, the more I believe that yes, it was worth it, because what I want with this channel is this. It's to be able to convey my true emotions to you guys and what I truly think. And what I truly think is this. Lifting is the best thing that one can do in your life. This is why I want you guys to lift. When I see the happiness it brings into my life, I can only wish for it to be more widespread. I think that if everyone lifted, the world would be a perfect place. It would fix most psychological problems. Look at social anxiety. I used to be super socially anxious. Why? Because everyone treated me poorly. And I had started to integrate the idea that I deserved it, so I hated myself. How can you take the self out in public and be happy and confident when you hate it? It's not possible. You would never take a painting out with you and show it to people if you hated the painting. It's the same with your body. So what do? Spend time alone, removed from the crowd, craft something you can be proud of, take it out in public and see. See if the social anxiety is still going to be there. I tell you, it's not going to be. But for most people, it's something they'll only discover if they give lifting a chance, because most people nowadays lack two things. They lack confidence and they lack hope. They're always anxious about their standing in the world because they don't feel in control. Just like I didn't feel in control. When you go outside and you know people are going to treat you like shit on sight, how can you feel in control? It feels horrible because you know that every time you go outside, something horrible is going to happen to you. That's a lack of control. And it's also a lack of control that is going to lead you towards despair, because you're going to start to lose faith in life in general. You're going to feel like it's not even worth it to live. I had gotten to that point. I was never suicidal, but I was starting to question the importance of even putting in my best effort because I was not having a good time. Lifting restored that good time. And therefore, I am convinced also that if it weren't for these events that happened, I would have never grasped that hope. That hope was only found in despair. I think that not being able to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel is the reason why you're going to struggle twice as hard to eventually see it. But I want you to know that there's a light. If you're in a situation where you're just like me and you're down in a hole, I want you to know that it's a hole. That there is an exit of the hole, you can come out, but you're going to have to struggle and you're going to have to believe, because that confidence can only also be built through hope. The belief that at some point, yes, it's going to work. That's all transformations, by the way. You start somewhere to go somewhere else. You never know where you're going to end up. If you had told me 5 years ago I would be here in this instant with you guys looking like this and feeling like this, I would have never believed it. But it's because my hope was like this. Nowadays, it's like a planet and it's going to keep expanding. And I want to share some of that with you, because you have to understand also that hope is what is going to convince you. It's going to convince you that things can change in a positive manner. You see people who don't have hope, they've convinced themselves that nothing would change and that it's all out of your hands. That's not true. But I know that it can feel like this sometimes when the entire world treats you poorly. That's what lifting is going to do to you. Lifting is going to restore that hope, because lifting solves those two problems at once. Transforming your body makes you more confident because it shows that you can transform yourself. It shows that you have an impact on the way you feel, on the way you view yourself, on the way the world views yourself. And that you can also transform the world, the people around you. You see, me lifting weight didn't even just change my body, it changed the way people viewed me. Isn't that more powerful? Isn't that almost magical? With lifting, you can change the interactions you're going to have in this world. You can go from a world where people treat you poorly to a world where people treat you magnificently well all the time. Why wouldn't you go for it? It would make you so much more social. It would make you a better asset to this world, because now you can become a leader instead of just becoming someone who is just bullied all the time. It's a choice that you have to make. And once you have that, you have true confidence as well. Because once you can make that change from someone who's completely useless to someone who cannot be forsaken, someone who cannot be ignored, and someone who is needed, who can be a strong influence, you will never go back from that. That confidence is there forever. It's the reason why also the memory of the past me is one I hold dear to my heart. One, because I'm still like that guy. I still view myself like that guy from 20 years ago, from maybe 15 years ago, but most importantly because it reminds me of the journey I went through. It reminds me of the way lifting changed my life. It makes me feel better about who I am. It makes me feel more confident. It gives me hope that it's available to 100% of humans. But most importantly, it leaves me with gratitude, because I understand that without lifting, none of that would have happened. And that's it. That is my story. It's the story of how lifting changed my life. So if there's one thing I can tell you, it's this. Give lifting a chance, a real chance, because if you do, your life is going to change as well. Have a good night. I have a bit of a hike back to make, and I'll see you soon.